that live there. Our client gave us this as a brief. We want 2 small towers to sell and 1 tall tower to keep. So please make a nice tall tower. Then we started the design process like this, and this is also typically how we do. We get the brief, we try to understand the brief, but at the same time also think of, well, you say that, but maybe you mean something else. So while on the left side, does this work? No, it doesn't work. On the left side, you see 2 small towers and 1 simple tower. We also developed schemes that go beyond, where the 2 small towers become 1, or where the 3 towers become a single building. And in various workshops and meetings, the client first selected 3, and later we kind of made it into a single scheme. So this is how we kind of we placed 2 towers together, and then we shaved them a bit, and we gave them pixels. That's the simple explanation. It's also about orientation of the building and trying to provide as many outdoor spaces to the residents as possible, and communal spaces. Yeah, mixed program, residential top, hotel in the middle, and then below still a mixture of program. And you see that all these units with the pixel, they have a balcony, and that all these units are double height spaces, so they're lofts. And this is how it looks more or less today. We were bound to use blue glass and aluminum, the same material that's used all over this display. Local governments did not want any exception, so we simply did what they asked us. What we also did is try to integrate a lot of communal spaces in this project. So both on the ground floor, we continued the outdoor space inside the building, but it's sheltered. We have bridges connecting the 2 sides, which contain amenities, and we have also balconies. Those are the kind of small pixels higher up that are usable for all the residents. So that space inside is quite important, because we wanted to extend the use of the outdoor space also in the wet period of the year, in the colder period of the year, and also continue that X that you see on the right side, which is kind of the main shopping street, right into the heart of the building. And this is how it looks in its context from a Chinese garden. And that's where you see the kind of opening of the atrium. There you see the private and the collective balconies, and the short facades with the opaque aluminum panels. And this is the inside, which, well, we're currently finishing the project. So on the lower levels there will be all kinds of tea rooms and small restaurants and so on for the users. Now, another project that I want to show, this is almost the last one, so bear with me, is the project called Galleria. It's a retail project that we completed in COVID period in Salle. It's a department store, and what's interesting, it's actually 2 projects in one. 2 projects because we had 2 clients in a way. We had on the left side the CEO of the company, who was very clear about his ambition. I want efficiency, and efficiency. So give me a square plan, no voids, no bullshit, just something very regular. And we are good boys, so we always say yes. And then there was the son of the family, because everything is family owned in Korea. And the son came in the company, and I wanted to show off. And he said, like, he studied art in the US somewhere, and so he came. It should be, different. Should be unique, innovative. And so we try to also please him. So we ideally please everybody. Anyway, the first part is about the cube. This is the surroundings. It's a new town. New towns are kind of these expansion areas, like also in China. In this case, in Korea, they're built quite quickly, and everything looks as if it's built out of cardboard. Let's say temporary, at its best. Everything is grey and beige and brown and so on. So our site was basically behind these towers here on the front, and it was a little bit depressing, I must say. Especially, this was on the plan, the epicenter of this new town, but nothing felt like this is the place to go or to be or to stay. So what we then decided quite quickly, we want to build something that feels as if it has been always there, as if it's a 1,000-year-old building, like a kind of natural point of gravity that people, you know, accept as their city center, even if it's only a few years old. So what we had friends at a kind of stone company, and we got a lot of samples, different stones, and we tried to kind of put this in 1-to-1 scale. So that's the side model, and those squares are the actual size of that cube that we were planning to build. And then with the client, we were testing different stones. What do you like? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? So we had this kind of beige brown tones that we thought blend perfectly into the surroundings, because everything is a beige blur. And almost like a camouflage painting, but at the same time, in scale, it's going to be very impressive. And that's so we were working on this with them, and try to also identify what are kind of nice moments. So in the end, what we did, we took that all home and started to collage our ideal natural stone block, travertine block, because we like travertine. And you see all those kind of lines and patterns, and it's almost like you don't design the facade, because it was always there. Because typically what happens in retail is they want you to subdivide it and talk about human skill, and it's too big, and it's like, people don't like it. Well, sometimes it's nice to have a kind of big block there. So, but anyway, the kind of graphic design helped us. So what we did is we then pixelated the scheme, defined 14 different tones, colors, and translated that into 14 different types of granites. Granites from China, from other places in the world, cheap ones, expensive ones. The expensive ones are more on the lowest 2 meters, where you actually see it, touch it, and the cheaper ones are higher up, where you don't see it that well from nearby. So this is then what we kind of, oh, I just skipped one, yeah, that was generated. Then a story about the second element, that's the kind of the route that connects the streets, literally the sidewalk, all the way up to the roof terrace. Basically creating an almost public domain, connecting street life to kind of green park. And from there you can access every floor, and you can also escape the pressure to do shopping, because not everybody likes to shop all day. So that's what you get. So we excavated from the exterior a kind of a certain depth, partly circulation space, partly programs, and then we generated that kind of sculptural facade, bringing in daylights and establishing a kind of relation from street to the interior, also allowing other program that actually works with daylight to have some qualities. So we scraped off a bit of the skin, and sometimes we kind of went into the plan, connecting one end to the other end, and that's how you basically make the entire loop. In total, 540 meters of loop. This is how you see. So on the right bottom you see the entrance. In the left center you see a part that is kind of cantilevering out, and on top you see the VIP lounge, which is the kind of last destination before you reach the rooftop. So when you enter, left is the entrance. You can either go straight into the department store, or you can go up here, and that's where you then follow your path. And in the evening, of course, it kind of shows a lot more of the activity inside. It's partly sticking out, partly cantilevering out, partly pushed in. This is a part which is simply circulation with access to the shop on the left. We have informal auditorium spaces, exhibition spaces, pop-up. This is the double height flagship store of Samsung. And this is the part where it's cantilevering out with the glass floor. And it's when you look up. And that's when you come from the glass floor and enter the building again. And then on top we have the VIP lounge, where you can actually enjoy the view over yeah, the surroundings. Now, that's Seoul, and I have just 4 more slides to show you. So Seoul is nice. It's Korea is kind of a lot is happening there. It's becoming very international. We've been doing quite a few retail projects there, or projects for commercial projects for the big companies. So we were really looking for also projects that have, let's say, different typology, more relevant perhaps. And so we joined this competition, which was for a university. And as we're in a university here, just want to say we also do campus designs. So think of us. Hongik University, those are the buildings there on the right side. It's built on a mountain, on the Wow Mountain it's called. And then on the bottom you have the Hongdae district. And the Hongdae district and the Hongik University are historically connected because first there was the university and then the area around it was developed, and that's where the students lived. And another interesting thing is that the university is a private university, but it's known for its art and architecture school. I mean, that's kind of the best school, so I guess you can relate to that. It's a 135,000 square meter program, but only 20% was allowed to be built above ground. The rest needs to stay underground. So it was quite a challenge, also very mixed use, so classrooms, labs, but also art school, art museum, art program, etc., etc. And our intention from day one was to reconnect, because over time that connection got lost, the city below, and the ones who have been there, I mean, you're all focused on Korea, you know that like Hongdae is the lively area with all kinds of pop-up events and music and performance and so on, the food and drinks, and connect that area back to the university, because also a lot of architects and artists are living there and they want to kind of connect again. So that's what we try to do. We connected on various levels physically, because it's a slope and we have a kind of sloping connections on top of the roof. Physically, because we connect the, also next slide. If you lift up the top, you see one floor that continues from the city into the building, which is the Hongdae level. That's where we combine public program and university program. That's kind of the most public floor in the building. Above and below, it's more academic. So connections on all levels. And then we have the courtyards. As it's an underground project, we bring in daylight through these courtyards. These courtyards again are programs, and they're also connected through these kind of connections underground and under buildings, through buildings, etc. So altogether, it's really kind of a buzzing place full of, let's say, different conditions that should stimulate creativity, because the artistic and the creative thinking of the art school and architecture school is something that they want to kind of further bring into all their other faculties. I think that was my last slide. So, thank you.
Okay, let's give another round of applause to Mr. Duijn. Thank you very much, sir, for that thought-provoking presentation. I'm sure all of our students were very inspired by the work you've shown. I know we are all eager to learn more and ask our special guests some questions. We now open the floor for our Q&A from our audience. Kindly form a line and approach the microphones in front of the stage.
Yes. No questions? Harvey, I think you said they ask many questions here.
Are you guys shy to ask some questions? Maybe they're still thinking. Sir, if I may I ask you something? Do you have any opinions on new direction for architecture? Because with the rise of AI, how do you think that technology would be helpful or detrimental in our practice?
it's something we don't know yet, I think. I think since a year, more or less, AI is present, actively present, after, let's say, years and years of talk about what AI could do. We have the first tools that are available, and we just had a discussion before the lecture also about our experience with AI. We are studying it in our office, in the sense that we like to know how it works, how to create a safe environment, how to work with it. It's of course considered as a threat, like we're going to get all out of work because, you know, anybody can just shout 3 words and you get a kind of image from those 3 words and 2 more commands, and you have your construction documentation, and 1 more command and you have it 3D printed. I mean, no, I don't believe in that. I don't think that's a reality for the entire business. But at the same time, it will of course mean a shift. It will mean a shift from I mean, this simple work will be reduced, but you know, at the same time, when we all talk about the paperless office, I mean, I don't think there's ever been so much paper in that office as today, because we keep on printing and printing and printing, and the value of a paper has changed. When, I don't know if you still do hand drafting. Do you hand drafting in school?
We have for our frosh.
Yeah, like with
the
rotating
T-square
pens,
and triangles.
Well, then you know what the value of a piece of paper is if you work on one piece of paper for a week and then you finish it. But I mean, the moment you switch to digital, you print things 10 times and then the lines change it. Oh, let's print again. So, you know, it's going to change the world, but it's not going to erase our profession immediately. Maybe another 2 years. I don't know.
Maybe we won't live long enough
Yes.
to see it. Yeah, but yeah, it could be used just a complementary tool to make some
It's another,
processes.
exactly, it's complementary to, we still make physical models. We still build models in foam, in wood, in plastic. 3D print has not replaced all the other things. We still make renderings. We still do things by hand sometimes, simply because it's nice to do. So the things, you get more possibilities, and I think none of them is replaced 100%, but I'd say that's the optimistic answer to your question. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any questions? Don't be shy. Please just approach the mic in front. Sir,
I have to sit? Okay. He's not a student, he's not allowed to say
Not a student. Yeah, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful talk, Chris. I think it would be very interesting to hear you share with the students the nature of how you deal with clients. Because, you know, from the point of view of students, it all seems really a direct connection from our creative souls onto the screen and onto the built landscape. But there is the process of how ideas, and some of them, you know, some radical and unexpected ideas, have to pass through the sieve of client approval. And if you can share a bit of how you're able to evolve these ideas into built reality via the client experience. And I think that'd be an insight that'd be very valuable for the students.
Well, I think simple answer is, the project is as good as the client is. It's the project I have showed you in most detail. I mean, whether it was Prada or it was Springer, well, Galeria maybe not, but those were clients we have been really developing a very, very good connection over time, which is based on trust and confidence, and that goes 2 ways. Prada is, I mean, the Pradas, they came to our office in 1999, unexpected. They landed with a private plane in Rotterdam Airport, mini airport, and they came to our office. In the morning there was a call, yeah. Mrs. Prada and Mr. Bertelli are coming, and so we were unprepared. And they came and they said, well, we saw this sorry, this publication, which was a shopping book done with GSD at the time, and we see you've taken kind of really great interest in retail, and what we see as retailers is there is no thinking about retail. So, are you interested? And we had not done a single retail project at the time. I mean, we were, well, really not so in the retail and the commercial world at the time involved. So they basically said, so what do you need? And we said, well, we need 3 months to understand your company. So we do, what I do now is tourism, so we call it. I do tourism. I'm just spending time and see and look around in here, and I mean, we have no idea what we go to, whether we do anything here or yes or no, but it's an investment in time. It's an investment in trying to understand the context. So we visited the factories, the design offices, try to understand what is the culture of Prada, what makes Prada different than others. And they had that, they gave us that confidence to kind of do that. And then we presented to them things. In the Kunsthal, we took a giant exhibition space, you know, projected our kind of photos, images, analysis, etc., etc. And from there, we built that relation. And that is very personal, because when we do a project with Prada, it's with Miuccia Prada. She is the one sitting there, but he's more the man of money, she's more the designer. And as she is designer, she, on one hand, gives you that space, respect, but she also has an opinion about everything. And that is a kind of very interesting dynamic. We had the same also with Springer. I showed you the slides with the CEO, Dupfler, where he was standing, and I said, I want some Silicon Valley, but also a bit of Germanness. I mean, he is a guy that kind of really knew what he wanted the building to become. No clue what the building should look like. In a way, didn't care, didn't want to say anything about it. So he gives that confidence. It was a design competition, so of course there was others also competing in that. But once we won, also it was always meeting with him where the big moments were made and where he kind of really felt like we're progressing. And that's what we have with the best project are with clients that challenge us, but also give us that confidence. And of course, in any project, you never know how client relationship develops. Try to invest in time in the client, trying to understand the client, which is also culturally very different. If in Korea, you know, the structure is kind of with the families, it's a very vertical organization. You have to deal with it very differently. You really have to kind of find the moment and the opportunity to kind of present to that person, the decision maker, and everything below is hopeless. I mean, they sit there and they just nod yes, but they have no clue what they're saying. They just don't want to kill any opportunity. So it gives also a certain freedom, but I mean, yeah, depending on the client, you have to kind of try to understand case by case what are the right moments, the right opportunities to actually push the project through. And at the same time, we are very open. I showed you the slide of Hangzhou with those 20 models. We're not advocating overproduction or consuming more unsustainable foam, but we do want to bring options on the table, and they ask us, which one do you like? Or we can give our preference, but it's also like, what do you think works for you best? And then we look at it again. And so it goes two ways. I mean, that's what I try to say. We are not an architect that makes a sketch, puts it on the table, and says, voila, that's it, and otherwise I'm gone. I mean, that's not how it works. Yeah. Yes, we have a question, or more actually. Yeah.
Hi, so thank you for your talk. You mentioned Prada again. Actually, I'm really interested with what you said a while ago about how these short shows allow you to experiment specific architectural ideas. And with the idea of architecture that's temporary, how do these projects greatly impact your larger projects? You know, how often do the ideas you experiment with actually materialize into your bigger works?
You mean specifically the Prada fashion shows, or not per se?
Yes, but perhaps maybe just in general.
Well, I think there is, our profession is great. No, I mean, we can do many things. We are engineers, we are creators, we are also financial experts, I mean, somehow, and we have to communicate. There's one dreadful thing about the profession: it's so slow. I mean, if you start a project before it's actually going to finish, the average duration is 6 years, but we have projects that take more than 12 years. So the kind of initiation of a design is years and years ago, and then you celebrate the opening, and in the meantime the world keeps on turning, and you kind of you need to also, you know, refreshen that and basically keep on force yourself to create new projects, and that's where these event designs or fashion shows or other temporary projects that we do in the AMO are great, because it forces you in 3 weeks to do a project from the beginning to the end. And it can be a literal, I mean, sometimes things literally end up in another project. A certain fascination for material. I mean, we have had that where very soft materials end up in other interiors, but it's not even so much the kind of literal thing, it's more about the process. I mean, doing a fashion show design, you have to understand that a fashion show, 3-4 weeks before the fashion show, nothing exists. There is no collection, there is no sketch of a dress or whatever. But they collect, I mean, what they do is they research, like, what's happening in the world, what's the sentiment, and they try to catch that. And then there is that short, very intense moment where they translate that with all their people into a collection. At the same time, it's the starting point from us, and we try to catch that same, let's say, global sentiment that they have collected, share it with us, and we use it as a beginning of a design of a fashion show. And sometimes these things kind of go in parallel. We design, and that happens, graphics for backgrounds, and they see the graphics, and oh, we're going to use it for shirts, and they print it on their collection when they wear it. Or details of a door handle became an earring for Prada. So it's kind of intense, where these kind of these collaborations, fashion, event design, architecture, interior, whatever it is, and it all comes together. And you know, when it's done, you have that kind of climax, and you move on to the next project. And certain things travel through other projects, but it's not even so much about the literal thing. It's more about that moment of adrenaline.
Thank you.
Okay, we can have our next question from our student. Yes.
Good afternoon po. So, you mentioned earlier that you've been going around Manila trying to get a sense of the place. And I would just like to ask, because I wanted to see the perspective of someone like from a more developed country, how do you think Manila could improve its urban planning? Because I guess this is just an insight that I have. I feel that it's hard to redesign or improve on Metro Manila because of the building density. It's as if it's easier to start with a blank canvas rather than one that's already full. So, from your opinion, how do you think Manila could be redesigned or improved on in the future? Seeing as how it's as if our problem is every inch is already occupied instead of us starting from a vacant space.
Yeah, well, if I could give you the answer to that question, that would be great. Yeah, I honestly, I mean, this is one of those things that why I wanted to see the city, because we're doing projects in Bangkok, for instance, and I've been a lot in Jakarta, and I see similarities, but also as many differences between these cities. But they're all struggling with this kind of expansion and densification at the same time. And that's why I showed these kind of projects at the beginning, these planning projects, because if you know you're going to expand so much over the coming years, then what should really happen is that there is a kind of public body that really plans for the future, and not have things be planned by the market in a kind of, you know, series of short-term planning, and things of it as an integrated planning, not as a kind of standalone planning. I'm going to build this and sell it for as much as possible profit, and then out of there. So that's not something what an architect can do. Obviously, it's much more a kind of it's a broader debate. I'm not going to political issues here. But yeah, no. What they do need are visions. What they do need are visions. Are basically ideas of how it can be, you know, changed for the better. And I think that's where all of you come in. I mean, you have to imagine. It's the expansion, which is almost the easy part, where you can have very, very big impact. But at the same time, you have to look also at your existing. That's why I showed the project in Milan. It's a very small scale project, but it's you know, you have to change the mindset. What drives the projects? More people, more square meters, more money, or what is there? Make it better and make it better for the long-term future. And yeah, I think that's where you are the expert of Benilde. I'm not the expert of Benilde, but what I can bring in is what I showed you. What happens in other countries? What happens in China? Just the opposite. There's good things about it. There's less, I mean, good things in there that are not per se so good, but I would say project it on top of each other and see what comes out of it. But I mean, these are the most challenging things you can actually work on, and much more interesting than designing a tower. So, if that's what your ambition is, then I think you have a lot to do.
Before I go, I guess that's what you said surprisingly sort of made sense. So I just wanted to add. Basically, based on what you said, interestingly enough, it sort of hit something like it hit the point of like here in the Philippines. I do feel that the problem with our urban planning is because, as you said before, it's very market driven, and I guess like something that I only realized or learned about after like I got to college is that the Philippine like urban development and land development is very again market dictated, and also because in the Philippines, I'm pretty sure land developers have a lot of pull in the government. That's why I suppose that's the reason why there's a struggle with land development.
Yeah, but at the same time, and I showed the project in Jakarta, which is, I mean, it's a private developer that actually takes the initiative to do what maybe in other countries public bodies do or should do. So maybe the markets could actually be reorganized in such a way that, because in the end, I mean, it's for everybody better if it's kind of coordinated. No? So maybe on the market side, you can also see if there's people that, you know, share that ambition and that together can invest in a larger plan for Manila than doing it all each by themselves. I mean, I think in that sense, the Jakarta client was a good example. What's less good is that they didn't pay us for the work they did. So I mean, that's unfortunate. But yeah, I can only, I mean, and I think what's also important in that what I mentioned, you have the kind of, you know, the different parts of town, the informal part and the kind of designed formal part, and to kind of keep that, use that. They have different paces, they have different potential, but it's like a true part of the city where, like, social economic situation is there, but you cannot just erase it and design it and put towers there, because people need to move to where. You cannot just ignore the problem, push it away. And we see that in a lot of cities. I mean, in China, they have just erased all the informal settlements and the hutongs and all the nice areas. Now they start to regret it. In many of the big cities, it's too late. If you go to Bangkok, also there is the point, the critical point of let's say new versus old. I think it kind of tipped. And they also have the same issue where you have the old townhouses. It's all privately owned. Every floor is owned by a different person. How can you kind of redevelop such areas in one? The only answer is a single developer buys it and kind of puts like big projects back. But you have to then develop projects that are bottom up. Get the neighbors together and find investors. And I mean, and that's a whole different story that requires so much local knowledge that we are the wrong person to help you with, I'm afraid.
Okay, next is a question from our faculty.
Hi, good afternoon. Maybe it's somewhat related. Maybe you can share your thoughts about the future of the relationship of architects with society and the relationship of architects with the state. With your samples, things like the failure of Evergrande and Country Garden in China is moving so many things. In Jakarta, the capital is being transferred. How do you let these movements either affect our practice or we ignore that as part of our practice?
Okay, that's a very existential question. Well, yeah, I mean, what happened if you zoom out? You know, like our profession once was a very public profession, public housing projects, planning was all done by governments. We were the good guys, yeah? We were the ones doing projects for the people. And what happened in the years after is that the market took over and we are slaves for the market, and there's not much we can change about it. But I think we have to always kind of be aware of where we see opportunities to drive another agenda. I mean, with every project that we do, yes, we do provide those 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 square meters of office space, of housing, or whatever. That's what you do, that's what you would do, that's what we do. The question is, can you do something more with it when you do it anyway? Because your client is not only the developer, your client is also the neighbor and the person who's passing by every day on his bike or car, the person that goes out there in the weekends and has to look at the building. I mean, there's so many stakeholders in this, and I think that's what we try in a kind of somewhat naive way to do what is our own agenda. Sometimes it's a secret agenda. Yeah. Sometimes it's an agenda that we don't need to share with the developer because they don't care about it. But you can tell, as I said, the Berlin project, you can tell a story, a building in different ways for different audiences. And I think it's fine. It only makes a building better. So I think being aware where the society is, where we are, where trends are going, and then react to that. That's what we try to do also with the AMO vehicle, which is sometimes we do projects for clients, but some of them are self-initiated, and nobody's paying for them, but it's like we work in many places, we see many places as a collective, and sometimes you're able to, you know, link dots and see, like, hey, there is something else going on. We have missed it. Why have we missed it? The most recent exhibition that we did, unfortunately in COVID, we're going to have another round, an updated round next year, is about countryside. We as architects and planners have been looking at cities, because cities are where, I mean, that's where the design work is. We have to plan expansions, we have to plan buildings. But what happens in the places that are left, the countrysides, we have not really spent spend a lot of time looking at. If you for a moment zoom out and look globally, you actually see that the transformations on the countryside are much bigger than the transformations in the cities. Cities, they go at the same pace. They get bigger, busier, whatever. But the changes for the people on the countryside are much more significant. That's not really, I mean, that does not give us any new projects, but it gives us new insights and tries to kind of put things in perspective. And I think we have the possibility, the resources to do that as a company, which we're, of course, not everybody has it. We try to use it also to always think of what else could be relevant for, because I think your question really is about relevance. When is a project relevant and how to make a project relevant? And I think that's a key question that we keep on asking ourselves every day again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question.
So I have a question regarding about poor urban planning and all around the world in general. Would also like to talk about the poor urban planning in the Philippines, mostly focusing on the traffic, like the congested traffic system in the Philippines. I think, what do you think would be the probable solution for those cases?
The problem would be to have fewer cars on the streets, maybe. But no, I mean, like that's easy. I think public transportation system sounds great, but of course those are investments that take billions and take a lot of time. That may not be realistic, but what you see in many cities in Europe and in generations, like Berlin, for instance, in Germany a lot, but also in France and all, is like many young people do not own cars anymore. They do all this car sharing. And if you can project that further, I mean, you would reduce the amount of cars on the street a lot. I mean, those are things that I see already currently, that the amount of car park in inner cities are reduced because of that. And that's not an expensive thing. It's actually a cheaper thing. It doesn't cost any infrastructure. I mean, that's also a kind of mindset about how you want to spend your money, what is quality. I mean, having a car is expensive, you have to park it and maintain it and blah blah blah. Not having a car liberates you from all of that. Well, it's an opportunity to use it when you need it. I see, I mean, surprisingly, I was surprised to see some still people cycling in Benilde. And I mean, of course, and on little electrical scooters, the kind of, I think that you could develop much more. I don't know how realistic it is, but getting people out of the car, even if it's a tropical climate, etc. And those are all small things. I mean, I have no solution for you, and I think it's only getting worse if the city is expanding and increasing its density. But not doing anything is also not a solution. So.
Okay, in relation to that, I would also like to ask regarding, is it possible that TAF or Manila would improve, or should we just let it rot and start anew?
Well, that's very radical. I think you already restarted after the World War, no, basically from scratch. No. I think that would not per se be a solution to move the entire city to somewhere else. I don't believe that, but again, I'm here 3 days. I'm not able to give you kind of any serious insights that you don't have yourself. But what they do in Jakarta is they're moving the government center elsewhere because they want to escape the congested city. But they leave the rest of the city, of course, where it is, and it will keep on sinking. So, yeah, no, sorry, I have no concrete answer here.
Thank you.
If I may, maybe we should be hopeful as young architects, as future architects, that for us to be able to decongest the city.
So when we move out to the countryside, the suburbs, the new developments outside of Metro Manila, we're hopeful that the decongestion would help improve the quality of life here in the metro. So I hope that somehow answers the question. Okay, another question from our faculty.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Chris, for that wonderful lecture. I was just hoping if you can share to us a glimpse of how your design process works. Because based on your lecture, what I found fascinating about it is that there are context, there's history, there's a lot of factors that you put it together and created forms and shapes and solutions. So since this is a school, if you can you give us a glimpse of how it all starts and how it ends, basically your design process?
Yeah, well, we try, when the project comes in, we try very hard in the beginning to not design anything, but to do research, and research sounds very heavy, but you have to invest in the project. We go there always. When we went for 4 days to the university in Salle to, let's say, sleep in that area, eat in that area, walk around, talk to students. We had one person in our design team who actually had studied there, an alumni. So the first days was just photographing tourism, as I said. And I think that's what we typically do with projects, is to first absorb and not start sketching, not start in thinking of okay, this is where we have to connect and volume. So take that time, and you have to be generous. I mean, we try. Our design periods are also not longer than anywhere else. Usually, a concept design needs to be done in 2 months. This was also a competition, but you need to take that time to kind of really absorb and try to understand what the project is about. Because also in this case, the project was really about square meters. And then they said something about their identity was important. So what is that identity? And we saw that competition in Hongik University was with Hette Durmeron Piano, Chipperfield and Sana. None of them went to the site. None of them went to go there. And you can see it, because the only thing they did is put 3 boxes there, and that's it. And I think the university afterwards, they were like almost shocked by the kind of the solutions that were offered, because that's what they were saying. So it kind of shows that, if you don't have that level of understanding, or at least don't make the effort, your solutions will also not really reflect that. So that's what we do. Then what we then also do is, of course, analyze the brief of the client, and then challenge that. So they want 1 tower. Well, they require 1 tower, but maybe not a tower. Maybe we just make it, a flat pancake, or it's 3 towers, or whatever else, and show it to the clients. So it's not something we do only keep it to ourselves, but we promote these kind of interactive moments, these workshops, and in the nicer projects, I mean, there is this kind of click with the clients, and that's when things develop. I mean, they need to get excited, and then we get excited, and they get excited, and then the thing goes. It's a nuclear reaction, basically. So that's how our process basically is. We don't want to. We have no. I mean, you've seen our buildings. We don't have one style. Yes, we do pixels. Yeah, we have round buildings. Yes, we have boxes. Yes, we have many boxes, and we have weird shapes. But the shape is really irrelevant in the beginning. It only communicates basically what the project stands for at the end. I mean, that's what we try to do. At the same time, research is never going to give you a design. I mean, you can analyze and create beautiful diagrams, but it's a mistake to think that a diagram is one-to-one translated into architecture. Of course, that's how we publish it, but that's never how it's done. So you need to still be intuitive designer. You still need to kind of, you know, play and test and shape and also see how that then again reacts to everything else you have considered. And that goes hand in hand. So it's both.
But exciting. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, next question from our student.
Hi, sir. So my question is, I noticed in your samples in the presentation that a lot of it is introducing like new typologies or innovative spaces in local communities. So my question is, what measures or approach are taken so that the new building constructed lives in harmony with the local community? Because I know there are some cases where when something new is introduced into a local community, it is usually met with antagonism, especially in places with like very rich culture or history. I know you have some projects in China, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always an important discussion, and I think we are considered, we are international architects, so clients don't expect us to come with a local solution per se, but bring in knowledge, know-how, references that we've kind of seen in other continents, countries, and so on. If we do, we for instance have a few retail projects in Bangkok. We work with the Central Group, K11 in China, in Korea with Lotte Shinjige and so on. And if you work with them, they always point at each other, like they do that, and that's like we want. And K11 said, well, we want that Japanese bookstore like in Bangkok, and so they expect us to kind of bring that knowledge to the projects. At the same time, we are organized in such a way that we have 3 design centers: New York, Rotterdam, and Hong Kong. We don't have a headquarter. We don't do design from one place only, because you need to be, let's say, sufficiently aware of what's going on in the region, in the country, etc. So what we try to do is bridge that, and you will not see a lot of vernacular bamboo roofs if we would do a project here or Indonesia, because I don't think that is, you know, what people expect from us, nor what we should do. But we try to, as I showed in the project in Berlin, try to quote, refer to the local culture of building, the local culture of that company, the local, the city history, and by doing that Springer building makes no sense if you build it in Rotterdam or if you build it in Manila. It makes no sense whatsoever. Maybe the valley has a media, yes, but not the rest. So while our buildings may not look local, i.e. vernacular, we try to bring in always contextual ideas and elements and references. But also that's I mean, you know, like you have the bamboo roof as a kind of, yeah, okay, that's the image of Philippines. When people come to Holland, they always have wooden shoes, like you guys walk on wooden shoes. No, we don't, but that's your image. I mean, it's too easy, such a cliche. We want to stay far away from that. We're contemporary architects, we're not traditional architects. But what you also see here, I mean, if you go to BGC or I see a lot of buildings that could have been anywhere, and they're done by American architects, and it looks like a very American part of city. And we're here in the tropics, we're in the Philippines. I don't see a lot of that back in there. And while that is a place of town that's for sure has qualities, and you know, adds something to Jakarta, I think it would be a terrible mistake if the rest of the city would be planned as that. So you have to find your own, yeah, identity in that sense. And that's something that will always keep on going, because your identity, if you go to CCP, you know the building, huh? Yes. Next to it, they have this kind of big bamboo roof. I found it quite interesting, because what's the national, what do you associate to Philippine identity more? That bamboo roof or Locsin? I think Locsin is at least as much part of the identity of Manila as that bamboo roof would be. But I think the way, if you portray Philippines through biennales or expos, I think the bamboo roof will win. So it's an interesting question.
Thank you, sir.
Next question.
Hi, good afternoon. Actually, it's almost connected with the last question, and it's a bit answered by your answer.
Thank you.
But just to bounce off of that, right? Can you say that architecture, your OMA architecture, really is somewhat a non-architecture practice? In a way that it's practicing because the globalization that's happening right now is too rampant and too fast. And when you try to lead a global practice, sometimes, of course, it's kind of exhausting in trying to create different designs and responses. How do you discern these solutions? So in a way, I'm seeing it as if it's like a non-architecture practice. Is that valid? Is that a valid statement for OMA? Or no, you can disagree or agree?
Well, in a way, architecture is maybe a mean and not the goal of our company. I mean, it's the way how we communicate, not only. We also have AMO. But yeah, it's not the thing we want to do per se, only is do buildings. In a way, we're storytellers. Yeah? We want to communicate, reflect on what is happening right there, right now. And the building is a way of doing it. Again, everybody can design a building of 10,000 square meters and so many floors, but it's what you do with it. And architecture is one way. And we see ourselves also as journalists, researchers, content producers, and architects, but it doesn't stop there.
Just a follow-up question. Given that you are the director of global practice, especially in Asia, how do you, maybe a pragmatic way on how you build endurance? Because of course, architecture is a long, it is a marathon. It's not something, especially your practice is not a sprint. You do different iterations. How do you, maybe a practical advice, how do you build endurance and, you know, trying to deal with clients, different narratives, different cultures? Yeah, just the endurance for practice.
I don't follow. What do you mean with endurance?
Endurance for like the architecture practice. Like, of course, it's a stressful one. Like you do design iterations, you do schematics, of course, hearing from people, external and internal. So as an architect, how do you build yourself, build that endurance to listen, to design, to present?
You mean like personally?
Yes.
More? Yeah, well, I mean, it's not about work. No, it's not, I don't do this because I have to. I don't do this because I have to be from 9 to 5 somewhere. It's something you simply, you know, you get energy from it, you like to do it, it's fun. I mean, the moment you see this as your work, I mean, I think it's going to be difficult to keep yourself motivated for all the deadlining. And because, of course, yes, you have always deadlines, you have always travel, you have to always be positive and try to convince people. And we're not only journalists and architects, we're also car salesmen, and we also have to kind of sell. And but I enjoy it. It's we meet so many people, we see so many kind of happy faces, and in the end of the day, I think the output is also nice. So it's stimulating. We're right in the middle. We're living in interesting times. I mean, there's so much going on in the world and bad things, but I'm positive that we can, flip things and want to be part of it.
Thank you.
Okay, next question from our student.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chris. So first and foremost, I greatly appreciate one of the design languages that you used, specifically with the Silicon Valley and the one on Prada, and that design language is contrast. And there's something that translates here in the Philippines, and you probably noticed this when you were going to Benilde, which is the contrast between the rich and poor, specifically Benilde and TAF. And this is an inherent problem, even on larger scales. And another example would be like BGC. And it's only separated by this road called Calayan Avenue. And on the opposite side of that road is Guadalupe, which is usually free, has a lot of informal settlers on it. So my question here is there a way to design with contrast without over highlighting this gap of rich and poor and possibly reaching a middle ground that would benefit both sides?
Yeah, don't ask me for an answer here on this, but what I tried to show you in the project in Jakarta was in a way similar, because that client is a big developer. They build only for the wealthy, or at least the higher middle class. And those kampungs that they didn't own, those settlements, that's where people live that have been, let's say, working in the fields, and that's where their life has been happening since generations. What the developer didn't look at it, he just see these areas separated by these settlements, and they were literally building just these kind of 3, 4, 5 meter tall barbed wire fences around these kampungs, separating them from the potential development areas, because they were already building some infrastructure. I think if you really, they built these walls because they were worried about kind of tensions between the different social layers. Well, if you build a wall like that, you for sure get tensions. You know that. What you could also do is invest in these kampungs, invest in infrastructure, in social services, give the people a job, make sure they become part of that larger development. And then you will probably not need to build a wall, and you will probably get a much better kind of relation between the different social zones and layers than building this physical wall. So I think when you do planning, then these should be things that should indeed on a larger scale be considered as well. Social, economic benefits of a development for a kind of much larger region. And I don't know if that happens here, so maybe it does, but we as architects are obviously, let's say, just a very small part of such a development. But you could only hope that developers would see this also as a win-win situation on the long term.
Thank you, sir. That was very insightful.
Okay, we're now down to our last 2 questions.
Hi, good afternoon. So I would like to ask the relationship between OMA and AMO in terms of the design process, especially for trend-driven projects like the Prada stores, fashion shows, or any exhibits or ephemeral designs, especially for like design events like Salone del Mobile.
We are one company, but it's basically a label. So if a project is not a building per se, or something that is physically a physical project, we tend to use AMO as our label, just in order for us to also expand our portfolio, and also basically for the exposure of our company. Because people don't trust architect companies doing things beyond architecture. So they still think in boxes. When clients come to us, like you do architecture, you also do interiors? Of course. Yeah, where's your interior department? Oh, we don't have an interior department. You do landscape? Yes. Where's your landscape department? We don't have a landscape department. No, because as an architect you can do basically anything. Yeah? As long as you can analyze, critically think, and have creative thinking, you can build anything or design anything. So, but it helps giving it another name. It helps because we've been doing, for instance, branding for the European Union. We designed a flag for the European Union years ago, and that would almost not be possible if we would do it as an architect's office. Now we're kind of a branding office also. So it gives us this kind of alibi to do things beyond architecture. It's a virtual image. I mean, it's of course a little joke that we kind of flipped AMO and AO simply because the icon was next to a mirror on the reception, and we have two companies. But apart from that, no, most of the people in our office are trained architects. We have a few people that have different backgrounds. So the people who do fashion designs, a fashion show design, or exhibition content design, they are pretty much all architects. Sometimes we have anthropologists in the house, or a biologist, or a graphic designer, or some media artist to work with the team and bring in special expertise. But the core of the work is done by architecturally educated people. Some people prefer simply a certain scale of work. They feel more comfortable, smaller scale. So most of the people that do fashion show designs are maybe not the best urban planners. Or so, but we leave that also for everybody to indicate themselves where their interest is and their curiosity. Because at the end of the day, it's better to expose people to as many different types of projects as possible.
Thank you very much.
Our last question.
Good afternoon. Coming from a diversified and holistic look into architecture that is hinged on publications, written literature, fashion, and 3D gaming and environmental design, how does AMO tackle their research for dynamic innovations? We have seen OMA's works through your presentation and have researched your works with interest, like Solid Nature, the Marble Entrances, and Milan Design Week. Do you mind sharing with us an insight to the witty style of tackling design, homogenizing design identity and local culture? In a way, I would like to ask how OMA and AMO do their research to start the storytelling, the once upon a time.
It's a very long statement, so you want to know how OMA and AMO do what?
Do their storytelling.
The storytelling?
Yes.
Oh, I tried to just tell that the last hour and a half.
Yes, but I would like to see it, I would like to learn from it in such a way that it's not just architectural, because I do a lot of writing. As I have said, I have researched your work, like Solid Nature from Milan Design Week, and the way it is very much emotional in design, and how people would read it, it's very different from how they would just see it. In a way, I would like to learn how it is homogenized and how it is catalyzed, wherein there is a sense of unity.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to you asked me about a project I haven't worked on. So, but I can only say like, the people who worked on the Solid Nature exhibition, and I think you referred to the one from last year. Yes. Those are the same people that also do the fashion show designs. Yes? And so they do have that sensitivity, because it is a sensitivity that not everybody has, where you try to kind of capture what the emotion is at the moment, you know? and try to translate it through very powerful graphic and color and emotions. I mean, it's all about the that kind of very short experience. And fashion show it's not even 10 minutes. Huh? It's not even 10 minutes. So, but it's a lot of power. It's a lot of energy that you have to kind of bring in for these kind of 10 minutes of excitement. And it's all one-liners, but it has to be dead on. And so you really have to have those sensors to know what's going on at the moment, and the kind of very broad kind of cultural, social, economic, everything. And that's what's happening in fashion, in a way. And that's what this group is also very good in translating. I mean, Stone is, we work with Salle for a very long time. They have the most remarkable materials, and just going to the warehouse and walking around there is great. And you have these pieces of stone, you can make it in art gallery, contemporary art gallery. They're so beautiful. So also that source is very inspirational, the materiality itself.
Thank you very much.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for the question and answer for this afternoon. Thank you everyone who participated in our Q&A, and to Chris for sharing your responses. To showcase our gratitude, may we call on the Architecture Program Chair, Architect Ben Quezon, on stage for the presentation of certificates and token of appreciation.
Mike, thank you. School of Environment and Design Architecture Program Awards. The Certificate of Appreciation to Chris Van Down in grateful acknowledgement of his expertise and professional competence as resource speaker at the OMA Architecture Lecture, given on the 16th of February 2024, signed by yours truly and the architect Harvey Vasquez. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
May I request Architect Harvey for our picture taking with Chris?
Thank you, Sir Ben and Dean Harvey and Chris. Once again, thank you also to everyone who joined us here today. Before we end the program, we would like to request our faculty members to join us on stage for a photo op.
It's a photo op.
A photo op with our faculty.
Benilde faculty, guys. Yes, come on.
Wait lang.